Recording in progress.
Honorable Skosan, I didn't know that you still remember us.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning.
Actually, you do. You came to visit us. You came to visit us. I must give you credit.
Thank you. I was not hearing anything, so hence I raised my hand. Thank you.
Okay. No, I do that as a sound check as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Governor, good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Very good morning to you and the rest of the panel members.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm good. Thank you very much. In which city are you joining us from? From which city?
Gauteng, Johannesburg.
Oh, you're in Johannesburg?
Yeah.
Okay. With these virtual meetings, you never sure you could be joining us from Amsterdam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm just waiting so in our proceedings, we've got two different witnesses. We won't start with you because our business with the other witnesses is really short.
Okay.
So I wouldn't like to keep them waiting when we probably going to have a short conversation, and then we'll get into the conversation with you. I'm not suggesting that it's going to be overly long either. I'm just saying, comparatively speaking, the two, for instance, the other witness doesn't have a presentation. So that makes it easier. Mr. Bikram, are you with us?
Honorable Chair, yes, I'm with you. Good morning to everybody.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thank you. Where are you joining us from?
Like Mr. Governor from Gauteng, Johannesburg.
Okay. Yeah, I hope you guys are not next door to each other, and you didn't even know. And you didn't even know.
Chair, can I just ask one question, Chair? With
Yes,
regard
of
to the
course.
presentation that has been sent through,
Yes.
will you be kind of putting it up on your side and moving through the slides as I talk to it, or how would you like to play that out?
No, I think it's better if you drive. The team can just give you sharing rights.
That's right.
Because
That's
it's
right.
your presentation. If we need to go back to a slide, we'll simply ask you to scroll back.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair.
All right. And let me just check if we've got enough members to start, and then we'll get going. All right, thank you very much, honorable members. Good morning and welcome to our meeting, and welcome to our guests, Mr. Govender from PwC and Mr. Bikram from Morar. What I'm going to do first is to allow Ms. Ibrahim, that both of you gentlemen have had the opportunity to speak to just explain the rules of this process, as well as to swear you in. And then once we have completed that, we will then begin our conversation, beginning with Mr. Bikram, and then depending on how long we take with the first conversation, we'll probably take a quick body break and then get on to the next conversation and then adjourn thereafter. Ms. Ibrahim, let me hand over to you.
And thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to yourself and everybody else on the platform. Good morning, Mr. Bikram and Dr. Govender. Before I start, Mr. Bikram and Dr. Govender, to the extent that you may have your legal representatives in the room with you, please note that they may not answer questions on your behalf, but should you wish to confer with them, you may indicate same through the chair and an opportunity will be provided. But all questions are to be answered by yourselves, please. First, you've been invited, subject to the provisions of Section 16 of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act of 2004, read together with National Assembly Rule 168, which affords certain privileges to witnesses, to appear before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts as a witness in respect of the committee's oversight inquiry into the Road Accident Fund. Please be informed that by law, you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all the questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or damages. You are, however, protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or a committee may not be used against you in any court or place outside of Parliament, except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or document required in these proceedings. Please be aware further that in terms of Section 17(2) of the Powers Act, a person who willfully furnishes a House or committee with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading commits an offence and is liable to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years. Mr. Bikram, I'm going to start with you, please. If you could kindly switch on your camera. If I can please ask you, sir, to indicate whether you would like to take an oath or an affirmation.
An oath is fine.
Okay. Not member. I'm just the legal advisor to the committee. If I can please ask you to raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I swear
I swear
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, sir. You're now duly sworn in for the proceedings. You can switch your camera off in the meantime. Dr. Govender, we're going to do the same. You can please indicate whether you prefer to take the oath or to do an affirmation.
Thank you very much. I'm prepared to take the oath.
Okay, thank you. If I can please ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I swear that the evidence I shall give
I swear that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Dr. Govender. You're now duly sworn in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ibrahim, and thank you very much to our witnesses for availing yourselves on a Friday to assist us with this work. So let me just give a bit of further background to this process. This is an inquisitorial process, not an accusatory process or adversarial process. We're trying to establish sufficient information for us to develop an understanding into various issues at the Road Accident Fund that have an impact on its financial performance, its financial state, governance, and its ability to meet its mandate in terms of the Road Accident Fund Act and the Constitution. Now, during the course of our work in correspondence with the Road Accident Fund, requesting certain documents and so on, as well as having witnesses that appear before the committee, it has become apparent that both your organizations have done work with the Road Accident Fund that falls within the terms of reference of the committee. So that's broadly. But more specifically to Mr. Bikram, rather than you, Dr. Govender, I will do the specific introduction later on with regards to PwC. One of the issues we are looking into is whether the board of the Road Accident Fund applied itself properly to the decision to change its accounting policy, because that decision appears to have had a significant impact on claimants, significant impact on its operations, and a significant impact on its financial performance, as well as the work of Parliament. Now, one of the things that we picked up and was subsequently confirmed by a witness under oath is that your organization, Morar Incorporated, was asked to provide advice to the Road Accident Fund with regards to the accounting policy change, at least which accounting standard to use, so that could inform its accounting policy. So that is why we have asked you to come here today. Most of us are not accountants. I think there are 2 or 3 accountants on the committee, but most of us are not. We are not here to litigate, what is the appropriate standard for South Africa generally, and so on, that technical conversation. But we are concerned with fiduciary matters. Of course, during the course of the conversation, you may need to delve into 1 or 2 technical matters, but this really is not the purpose of our conversation with you today. Now, one of the witnesses also told us that you had provided advice to the Road Accident Fund, and you were subsequently asked to withdraw it. So we just want to understand, and I'll give you some time in the beginning to just tell a story of how you got to engage with the Road Accident Fund, what you were asked to do, what advice you provided to them, and how your engagements with the Road Accident Fund concluded. So that is basically what we're asking you to do in the beginning, and we'll allow you enough time to set that out. And then once you are done, I will ask a few questions for clarification, and then ask the members to also ask their questions. And then once we are done with our questions, we will release you to carry on with the rest of your morning, if that is okay.
Richard, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will hand over to you then to just tell the story. How were you engaged? What were you asked to do? What you did? And how did your engagement come to an end?
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm probably going to just keep it as simple as possible for the convenience of the meeting, and I'll take questions after we've actually shared my firm's position. So, Chair, my role was Client Relationship Director for the firm with regards to RAF. There were 3 experts that we positioned for this assignment. 2 were directors who subsequently left the firm a while back, and the manager left the firm a while back. So unfortunately, they're not in the house to share their views. But I'm hoping that I will do justice to your queries. And in the event that I cannot, I'm hoping that you'll give me an opportunity to revert to my leadership to submit it in writing. I do hope that I will adequately brief the committee this morning nonetheless. So let's give a quick background. Morar Incorporated was one of many members on the panel of internal auditors that was appointed prior to 2021. And through that panel, we responded to a RFQ to assist the RAF with the review of the financials, specifically that which was here in 2021. It was the RFQ on the 5th of March. We responded around the 5th of March. We appointed on the 16th of March, and the audit planning memorandum, a terminology used during the internal audit line of service, was signed by the engagement director and the technical experts, was signed off on the 23rd of March. And the CAE at the time, if I remember his name correctly, it was King Siri, signed on the 25th. So that is how we got onto the assignment to conduct a high-level review of the financial statements. So I'm not sure if to go to the details specifically, but I'll give you a framework based on your invitation. So the basis of our work is predominantly a high-level review. Part of the high-level review was to assess the policy that we use. In that process, the report was issued by our technical expert to the CAE in this regard. And if memory serves me well, we were asked to put an opinion on the change in accounting policy. Now, I understand the honorable members may have a copy of the technical opinion that was issued on the 8th of April. Chair, I presume they have it, yes?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. I'm not going to go through page by page at this stage until we get into the detailed discussions. But the basis of our findings and findings per se was based on three categories. One is the GRAP statement that talks to the provisions and contingent liabilities and contingent assets. I know these are all accounting language, but talks to the issue around how you account for your liabilities. The other portfolio of information that was subjected to our analysis was actually the Accounting Standards Board's commentary on the change in accounting policy, and more specifically, the accounting of social benefits and voluntary adoption of insurance contracts. That was a second portfolio to look at, the team that looked at. And the third portfolio really was the IFRS 4, which is the insurance contracts. And in summary, Honorable Chair, through you, there was the GAP 19 in terms of whether it was applicable to RAF. Yes, it was applicable to RAF as a social benefit. However, that GAP also has an exclusionary clause, which in our opinion, RAF qualified for, therefore not to use the GAP 19. But what was compelling for us in our assessment was the issue around ASB, and we in public sector as service providers, especially the firm, my firm, consider that to be a preeminent standard-setting body for public sector reporting. And their pronouncement, at least 2.5 months before we were appointed, ASB responded to a query from RAB, indicating that at this stage, it's a project which they're pursuing and it should have been concluded by 2023. So we took that information into account as well as one of our primary basis of assessing the changing accounting policy. And then lastly, the third, like I said, there were three. The third basis was IFRS 4, which is really at that point in time was relevant for insurance contracts. Our detailed assessment was contained in the technical opinion, did identify two areas, one which we believe was not applicable, and the other which was the reinsurance contracts which tended to be applicable. However, notwithstanding whether it was or not, RAF had adopted IFRS 40 in the form that they had since the 2014 and 2015 financial year. And we are of the opinion that they should continue with that consistency until ASB pronounces or promulgates a draft statement that is applicable to the South African context. I'm going to stop there, Chair. That is the background as to synopsis of how the engagement transpired and realized itself between Morar and RAF. The detailed technical opinion, if you'd like later, we can go through it. But I'll stop there to take any guidance from you for the next comment.
No, that's not necessary at this stage. Thank you very much, Mr. Bikram. Now, two aspects from me. The first is that one of the things that's noted, I think it's in section 4 of the opinion. There are some bullet points. I'm not looking at it now, but one of these advises the RAF to get legal advice, I think it says. Are you able to provide us an insight into that specific, input?
Sure. Yes, we can. The legal advice that we alluded to is that in the context at the time of 2021 and the 2021 financials, the ASB, being the standard-setting body in South Africa, was still in the process of finalizing their view. So there was no, preeminent view for social benefits within the SA context. From our perspective, we felt it's best that RAF seek that legal advice to affirm which route they would like to take. Thank you, Chair.
All right. No, thank you very much. We've been told by one of our witnesses the week before last, the former acting CFO of the Road Accident Fund, but more general manager finance, Mr. Songelo, that your firm was then instructed to withdraw the opinion. Are you able to share with the committee the circumstances around that and how this was conveyed to you, or if any reasons were given for that?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Yes, I can. Just to give some context so I can get the timeline. So you see the timeline as to how the events unfolded. Our technical opinion was issued on the 8th of April in the format that you may have on hand. Where there were two meetings thereafter. One was a meeting on the 13th of April with the CFO, the then CFO at the time, and I can't recall the membership that attended from her finance team, but there were also some members from her finance team, whereby we were requested that meeting to withdraw. And in progressing in that meeting, the questions were asked, why are you withdrawing it? And the response we had was simply this, that the management has a right to solely select the accounting policy. That's one. Two was, it was deemed that a technical opinion was not part of the scope of the high-level review, which we accepted. Although, unfortunately, this was 2021, I couldn't track my correspondence and in fact when we got the request. I'll imagine I will have to look at my former colleagues' correspondence and the email correspondence if I need to find out when that request came through. And then the last comment was that RAF may, based on management's comment that they have the responsibility to choose accounting policy, that they will conduct a quality assurance on the change in accounting policy, and they may go through a procurement process. In other words, go back to market for bids for firms to advise in that regard. Unfortunately, we weren't invited, but I'll leave it there because beyond that, I didn't know what happened.
All right, thank you. So they never complained about the quality of the work.
The quality of the work that we produced, Chen?
Yes.
Not to my knowledge. I didn't get a complaint about the quality of the work that we conducted.
All right. Okay. Were you paid for the work that you had done?
We were paid for the work that we did to the internal audit high-level review, yes. And in the meeting of the 14th, in that meeting, Honorable Chair, it was just the CFO at that time and the CAE, where I was informed again of the decision, and then was asked not to bill for it, which we didn't. We didn't bill for the technical opinion. Therefore, obviously, there was no payment for that. I'll leave it there, Chair, and keep it simple.
All right. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to give the members an opportunity to ask questions. By a show of hands. Honorable Beasley, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just keep my video off. I'm just battling with connectivity. So I just note in your recommendation, it says, therefore, we recommend that the RAF continue to apply IFRS 4 until the ASB has finalized the standards for social benefits. So that was your final recommendation, and so it's quite clear and it's quite obvious. But when they ask you to withdraw your opinion, what does that practically actually mean? I mean, you've given an opinion. How can you practically withdraw an opinion? I mean, you can't put that report and what's the word, when you shred it or whatever. So how can you technically withdraw an opinion? And then I may have missed it because of the connectivity, but who actually advised you to withdraw the opinion, and did they actually give you a reason, rationale for it? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Beasley. Please go ahead, Mr. Bikram.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable member. So the withdrawal was a verbal withdrawal on the meeting of the 14th. I'm sure the honorable member can hear me. Is that on the 14th, on the 13th of April, at that meeting, the CFO then and her certain members of the finance team informed Morar that the work we conducted was deemed to be outside the scope of the regional work that we appointed for. And on the 14th, I was in a meeting with just the CFO and the CAE to indicate, because it was outside the scope of the original appointment, we were not required to bill for that piece of work that we did. So to that extent, honorable member, that is the basis on which we withdrew it. I did indicate to the meeting of the 13th that once this is a verbal request, that I'm compelled to issue a letter in that regard to record the withdrawal. So the letter that was in response to the meeting to record formally that we were requested to withdraw it. Thank you, honorable member.
Thanks, Mr. Bikram. Are there any other members with a question? A question I have is whether, in your view, you had gone out of scope.
On the chair, two things.
When you look at the brief that you were given and the work that you did, and they said you went out of scope, you might have decided not to argue. I don't know what happened, but were you certain that, did you also agree that you went out of scope?
Chair, it's a yes or no answer. No, because part of the higher level review of the internal audit review of the financial statements, we did identify a change in accounting policy in the financial statements. We identified it as an area to be addressed to comply with the standards for changes in accounting policy specifically, and the motivation for that change. It was identified with the internal process. Like I said, I will go through my colleagues' correspondence, and when we got the request to do the detailed technical opinion, the detailed technical opinion didn't reside in the internal audit original appointment, and that's I think was the basis for them to indicate that it was not necessarily part of our original contract, if we were to put that. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Beasley, Honorable Skosana went first, but I'm wondering if it's a new question or a follow-up, in which case I'll start with you.
No, thank you, Chair. So you partially covered me there, but I just wanted to know if you went out of the scope, did they pay you for going out of the scope? I mean, was your bill settled in its entirety, or did they say, listen, you've gone out of the scope, this is not what we agreed, so as a result, you're not paying a certain percentage of your bill? Thank
you. I remember, yes, it was outside the scope. Yes, we did the costing on the assignment to do the technical opinion, and yes, we did not bill, and yes, they did indicate us we could not bill for it, and therefore we were not paid for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Skosana?
No, thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to all to everyone in the meeting. Yeah, no, we appreciate the presentation for Mr. Bikram. I'm also having a bit of a network challenge. I have not had the response to the question of Mr. Beasley, the initial response. Maybe the point that I'm going to raise might have been covered. I don't know. With regard to the withdrawal of the technical opinion, because my understanding is that an opinion is not binding. So even if REF may have felt that they don't want to continue or to move in the direction of that opinion, my understanding is that RAF, it was within their right to say, okay, we have received an opinion, but then we are not going to use this opinion. We are still going to proceed in the manner that we want to. Because what surprises me is what is it that made Morar Inc. to withdraw an opinion? Because you have issued an opinion. Let's say RAF does not like that opinion, but was it really necessary for you to go to an extent of saying we are officially withdrawing our opinion? Because even if RAF did not want to use it, they could have just shelved it and said, no, we're not using this opinion. But what is it that really necessitated you to formally withdraw the opinion? I think it's the part that I did not get on the earlier response. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Skosana. Mr. Bikram, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Member, to answer your question, I hope I'm audible, is that All I can testify to or submit to this meeting is that we were called into a meeting with the CFO and her team on the 13th of April, where we were informed that it was beyond the scope of our original appointment, and management has the sole responsibility to develop their own policy, and that's the route they're going to be pursuing. And subsequent to that meeting, on the 14th, I was informed that due to the fact that it was outside the scope of the initial appointment, we cannot bill for the technical opinion that we provided. We did not bill and we were not paid. I hope that is audible to the honorable member. Thank you.
Honorable Skosana, could you hear that?
Yeah, no, I did hear, Chair. But maybe my follow-up is, were you not given an opportunity to put another opinion that is within the scope? Because I think from what I'm capturing is that the reason for the withdrawal, it was on the basis that you went beyond your scope. So were you not given an opportunity to say, give us an opinion that is within your scope only, instead of totally withdrawing, but without replacing with anything?
Through you, Chair, honorable member, no, we were not given an alternative to express a similar opinion or express an opportunity to arrive to a similar opinion. Thank you.
Let me ask Mr. Bikram, has in your experience, and I'm assuming that you've got many years of experience, have you ever been asked to retract in this way?
No. Simple answer is no.
Because I must say it seems unusual. Advice doesn't have to be wholly accepted by an organization. They may accept part of it. The parts that they don't entirely agree with might nonetheless inform how to do things slightly differently, or how to, whatever the case might be. It might assist with a debate in the organization, which strengthens the manner in which they look at. But to ask, for advice for which you have paid, in other words, you don't think the supplier has misconducted themselves, you don't think that they've been unprofessional or anything like that, to then ask them to expunge the document from existence, at least in the universe of that organization, seems odd. And that is why I'm asking you whether this has ever happened.
Honorable Chair, no. In my experience, in my personal career, it's the first time that I experienced an event in this manner. And it's because of that I actually submitted in that meeting that I need to place it on record. Because meeting seemed, there's no minutes been taken for that meeting. If there were minutes taken for the meeting, Morar as a firm was not privileged to those minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay, so would you still have a record of the correspondence that you sent? A copy?
Yes, are you referring to the letter that I've issued?
Yes. Yes,
I do have a copy, yes.
If you don't mind, could you please just send us a copy thereof through Ms. Ibrahim? Yes, thank you. That we would really appreciate that. Let me just ask the members: are there any remaining questions for Mr. Bikram at all? Okay. It does not.
Thank you, Chair. I have been covered. Thank you.
You've been covered. Okay. All right. Okay, so if you could please just send us a copy of that letter, would really appreciate it. Otherwise, like I said in the beginning, our conversation is just on that specific aspect, because we just wanted to establish what happened. Sorry, Honorable Skosana has remembered something. So please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, maybe I should ask Mr. By the way, the surname, I forgot the surname. Just the question, not well, which was not mainly in relation to the opinion, but as a person who has got a knowledge on these things of the accounting standards and so forth, is it your view that RAF is supposed to continue with IFRS 4 up until a more conducive and relevant accounting standards is developed by ASB? Is that your personal view as a person who's got more knowledge and in this particular field? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Yes, the answer is yes, and that was documented in the technical opinion that we had submitted. Yes, your way forward is that you presented in this meeting is similar to, if not exactly the same as our recommendation. Is that once the ASB promulgates the South African context in dealing with social benefits, the RAF should continue with the accounting practice and policy they implemented in 2014, which was IFRS 4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and much appreciated. So if you could please just assist us with a letter that you sent, so that we can have a full record for our discussions with the management and the board of the Road Accident Fund at a later stage. But I want to thank you on behalf of the committee for making time to speak to us this morning and your willingness to be readily accessible to us in this work. We really appreciate you, sir, and have a good day.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honourable members. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Governor, I hope we have not put you to sleep, sir.
No, not at all, Honourable Chair. I'm right here listening attentively. If you can give me a second, I'm just trying to put the presentation up, which kind of culminates around the story I need to tell as well. I've requested access for sharing, Chair.
That's fine. May I ask that you try and move closer to your device? You were very audible earlier on. Okay. Now you sound very far.
Chair, is this better?
Oh. No, not at all.
Give me a second. I'm sitting in a bigger boardroom, so just give me a second. Let's see what we can do here. Chair, is it any better?
Members, can you hear? The only thing I worry about is the streaming, because the meeting...
No, Chair, can't hear.
Okay, so there is a problem, Dr. Governor. When you were speaking to us earlier, you were audible. Are you not able to do the same thing?
Okay, we are trying to do that. Let me see. Is it any better? Sorry, we're playing around with a couple of options here. Is it sounding any better, Chair? Chair, maybe not you, but maybe one of the other honourable members can just confirm if they can hear me better.
No, there's been no change quality-wise. I mean, I can hear you, but with some difficulty.
Just give us a second, Chair. I'm getting my technical guy, IT guy into the...
Okay. No, that's fine. You can do that. We'll wait.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. And Chair, if you could just request somebody on that side to give me access. I have requested access already just to approve for sharing.
Okay. So can Sisndombi or Denzel give Dr. Govender sharing rights?
Chair, while we're busy with that, I've got my technical IT guy in the room, so he's going to try and help me solve this problem. They actually can't hear me loud enough, so maybe you
All right.
Chair, can we try one more time with the sound? We've made a change here with the device.
No, it hasn't changed. Do you think it? I mean, are you working off the boardroom AV system?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that is why. Would it assist you if you used your personal device?
Yeah.
And then also instead of the boardroom AV system, use your personal device in the event that you want one of the parliament team to drive, and you just tell them next slide. If that assists at all, please do that.
Okay, Chair, let's start with your first suggestion around changing it to my personal laptop and
Yeah.
getting out of let's do that first, and we'll take it from there.
All right, that would be preferable for me as well.
Chair, I've now put it on my personal device. Please confirm.
Yeah. The sound is superb. So, so thank you very much. If you can please share, but I'm going to do an introduction first, because not just for you, but also for the public, because our proceedings are public.
Sure.
Yeah. So the reason, Dr. Governor, we've asked you, you being a PwC, to be with us today to talk about this, is that we are also looking into areas affecting the financial performance of the Road Accident Fund, where that emanates from its where those financial outcomes emanate from its operations and choices around operations. And I will give an example: the extent to which the removal of certain functions in the organization resulted in a drop in performance in terms of claims registered, claims finalized, and so on. The costing metrics in relation to how much it costs to finalize a claim, which has gone up by, in terms of the legal fees, which has tripled in terms of average cost per claim, etc., etc. So we have had to look into some operational matters in order to understand where the financial leakage is coming from, but also as well as the impact, obviously, on the victims of road accidents that need the service from the Road Accident Fund. In the course of our inquiries into these matters, we came across information that there was work that you did on an organizational structure review for the Road Accident Fund. Our preference is that we get to hear from the organizations that provided that work. You were part of the discussion with Morar Incorporated. Is that the kind of thing that we do? Like I said earlier on, this is inquisitorial, not accusatorial at all. So just mind your acronyms when you talk, especially specific sector-related terminology, if any, that you just say it out and you explain. We will not feel patronized at all. But if you could just take us basically what were you asked to do, what it is that you did, and how the process ended with the Road Accident Fund. Like I did with Mr. Bikram, I might ask a couple of questions. I'm likely to ask a couple of questions thereafter, hand over to the members to do the same thing, and then we will be done together. So I will hand over to you to do your presentation.
Honourable Chair, thank you very much, and thank you for that brief and kind of context in terms of the presentation. I've got a couple of slides.
Sorry, may I ask that you go into full screen mode, if that's okay, so that
Sure.
On the streaming screen, it's more visible.
Okay, we're going to do that. Chair, does that help, or you want it a little bigger?
Yeah, we want it full screen because as you talk, Parliament TV will then show the slide and not show your face, so just show a little bit of your face. You know what they do. Yeah, thank you. That's perfect.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair. And just confirm, Chair, that you can hear me loud and clear as well.
Very clearly. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Chair, thanks once for the opportunity. As I said, I put a couple of slides together, which I thought will help in telling the story with some of the details and nuances that you kind of kindly send requests around. This particular presentation has also been sent through, and I'll walk you through it. But happy, Chair, if you can allow me to go through the presentation, and I'm very happy to take any questions. And Chair, I know as a typical consultant, we sometimes use these consulting jargon. I promise not to use, but if you catch me out, please feel free to stop me and pause me at any moment as well, Chair.
Sure, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So what I'd like to do is, and I guess based on the brief, is a couple of things. Number one, I just want to talk about the award journey that we walked. Where did it come from? How were we appointed? Contracting, those kind of things. The second part is I just want to also talk about what was encapsulated in our proposal in response to the RFP in terms of the scope, the approach, and very important, Chair, the limitations. As you would understand, putting in a proposal with lots of unknown factors, we got to put our caveats, limitations, assumptions, and be crystal clear around that as well. The third part is what I would like to do is talk to, and I won't go into the detailed activities, but what's perhaps important on number 3, Chair, and for the honourable members on the call, is what were the core deliverables, and let's call them outputs in this instance. What was actually given to the client, the RAF, at a point in time? And then I'll talk a little bit about the value for money, which is really around the fees that we charge and so forth. So, Chair, are you happy with that agenda in terms of what I'm going to cover? I can jump straight into it.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So let's start with the project award journeys. So very important, I think, just in the top part there, I won't read every word, but PwC kind of received an RFP, a request for proposal, and I'll give you the dates and stuff as that lends itself to. PwC then responded by the Road Accident Fund. Once again, after responding with a technical and a financial proposal, which was part of the tender request, obviously tender documents were completed and so forth. We were appointed by the Road Accident Fund to really streamline their operations by identifying inefficiencies in their processes and organizational structure in particular. And Chair, just to make it simple, that normally when you want to make an organization more effective and efficient, and if you've got a clear strategy in place, which the Road Accident Fund had a corporate strategy going into 2030, that is just the strategy, but the actual vehicle to make that into a reality rests in the structure, the operating model, and the processes that kind of drive the organization. The scope only included the design, developing, and transition plan, not any implementation, and I think I've been quite explicit in my presentation, and I'll share that with you. In addition to this, Chair, there was also asked from a people perspective in terms of driving people efficiencies to do a full-blown skills assessment of the entire Road Accident Fund. And what that really is about assessing the level of skills that people currently have vis-a-vis what they should be having going into the future in what this new operating model or structure entails. So at the bottom there, you'll see, Chair, on the left bottom there, the open tender issued on the 13th of December 2019. and the closing date was the 23rd of January 2020. And obviously that was within adequate time frames in terms of a request, and very much in terms of how PFMA operates in terms of giving service providers adequate time there, so that was fine. PwC responded with as I said, with the technical and financial proposal. The date of that is the 23rd of January 2020. I also took it a step further just to add that actual tender number, which is RAF 2019/00026. On the 4th of May, Chair, on the 4th of May of 2020, we received an appointment letter. Obviously, RAF would probably gone through the adjudication process and the committees and so forth, and we were sent a letter, and it was sent to me as the engagement partner, was the signatory on the proposals as well, that we've been appointed and we received the official award letter. Chair, as you know, getting an appointment letter is one thing, but it's not a contract. So we obviously had to work from that point onwards in terms of having a meeting with the client and saying, okay, we appointed, let's get into contract stage as well. So the contractual discussions on the last block, pink block, whatever color it is, the contractual discussions and scope variations, so just to take you through that, contractual discussions began post-award letter, which is post 4th of May, being received. The contract was officially signed on the 9th of July 2020, and obviously from our side we had to take it through our legal mechanisms and risk management to make sure everything is vetted. So that was vetted from our side, and we passed it over to the Road Accident Fund. They took a little bit of time to do this very similar exercise, take it through their legal entities as in line with procurement and signing of contracts. So the 21st of August 2020, we received the signed contract, which was signed now by both parties. Chair, just to make mention, it'll probably come up later, there were two scope variations in this particular project. I'll talk a little bit about what they entail, but just to say, one of it entailed two parts, and I'll give you the dates and the specifics in a second, Chair, if you allow me that. One, as I said, had two parts. The first one was about an extension on time period because of delays in terms of people being available, subcommittees, project teams, and gathering of the information, so that was fine. That part, Chair, did not have any financial implications. The second part of that variation of scope letter, which is part B, the client wanted additional business process to be done, and obviously we were clear in terms of capping the number of processes, so we went into a discussion around the variation. The request came from the client directly, and we responded with what we'll be able to do to assist you based on your ask, as what is the costing associated with that exercise as well. So you'll see, I'll get to that later. And then, Chair, as I said, the second variation was a standalone, no cost implications. All that happened was it was the very latter part of the project. We knew that time was running out, the contract was coming to an end, and the client asked us to please extend it so we can get through the necessary governance structures for the required approvals and sign-offs and so forth, which was, once again, we accepted, and we signed, all parties signed on that second variation. Chair, if I can move along to the next slide. I think this is a little bit of a picture to show you and how it all comes together. And I won't repeat what I just said, but just to quickly highlight, RAF issued the organizational review 13 December, as I said, 2019. Bidders obviously came through an open process, Chair, because we received this not directly from RAF. We received it through our official Africa bid office, which kind of tracks things that go out on tender in the open public domain. So that's where the first part relates to. You'd see that contracts, as I said, was signed 21st of August 2020. The contract was signed by both PwC and RAF, and it was bedded down. And then on the top, you'll see phase one. Now, Chair, in consulting, we've got a methodology of using various phases. So when I speak to phases, it's almost a period in which certain activities transpire. So phase one is really the inception, where we get on board, we mobilize, we have the kickoff sessions, we understand where the documentation is, we make the documentation request, we have a series of kind of interviews, especially with the CEO and some of his executives and those kind of things. What that culminates into, Chair, is a detailed project plan and a project charter, which was developed and signed off. And that becomes really, Chair, and to put it in simple language, that becomes our Bible in terms of what we use to deliver on the projects and check ourselves against that project plan and project charter. Not us as PwC, both RAF and us as well as a collective in a steering committee as an example. Chair, phase 2 was really around the strategy and assess. As I said earlier on, there was already a strategy in place in terms of which had been developed and approved by the board at that point in time, which was shared with us. It was called the 2030 Corporate Plan for RAF. We obviously had to, as part of developing the operating model, we had to look at it and look at what the key ambitions of RAF was in order to develop the operating model. Now, let me just simplify this. Operating model is probably a little bit of a terminology we use in the consulting world, but it's basically the whole value chain of how the organization should be structured. What are the various functions, departments, directorates, and so forth that you need to have, and what is the synergistic relationship they have with each other to be able to offer a seamless service to the citizens who are their clients and customers out there as well. The second part of that is the organizational structure. That's breaking it up now into actual structure. So what is the organogram looking like? And the third part, as I alluded to earlier on, Chair, was a skills assessment about what is your current skills, what are the future skills required for you, in order to you to be efficient and optimized, what is that gap, and obviously we provided recommendations in terms of how you close that gap, which is very much from a developmental purpose. I think one of the points I want to make strongly is that the skills assessment is always for the purpose, and that was clearly articulated in not just the documentation but in the final report. You use it to see where there's gaps in skills across the business, and you then start to put initiatives in place, whether it's training, coaching, mentoring, whether it's exposure, whatever it may be, to close the gap as rapidly as possible in order for your people to be equipped with not the skills for now, but the skills going into the future. Phase 4, Chair, was really around the construct. And we talk of construct, meaning we've done all your assessments, we understand what the landscape, what the pain points are. We then start to construct an operating model, a structure for the future of the business, and that also entails business processes and capacity planning for the future. Phase 5, I'll touch on phase 5 quickly, the transition plan. And Chair, I mentioned early on that our role was really around let me just repeat what I said, or take it one step back, was not to get involved in any implementation. Because as you can understand, we're not sure at a point of submitting a proposal how big, how complex is this implementation going to be without getting onto the ground, getting to the trenches. So that was clearly out of scope. What we did, however, and which we committed to, is to give them a transition plan for the period, or for handover to RAF, for the RAF team in a collective to take that forward. And some of the fundamentals that transition plan, which is quite a detailed document, is in terms of short, medium, and long term, how do you approach the implementation of this new structure into the future? And that entailed things like job profiles, transition framework, and so forth, which was more the tasks that need to be done as part of the implementation. Chair, I think at the bottom you'll see the variation. I'm not going to speak too much again. The variation scope 1, just to maybe just say that there are two parts. Part A, extension of the period, but also had a financial implication as well in terms of the additional processes that will be done. And then towards the end, Chair, the last point on this slide, which I thought I spent a few minutes, I think it's important because it kind of paints the bigger picture, Chair, in terms of where we started, what we had to do, and where we handed over. The handing over, Chair, was really around a closeout report, which was submitted towards December 2021. And obviously our contract then, valid contract, including the variations, would come to an end. So we had to close off. And the closeout report was quite a detailed report which had a series of attachments, annexures that related to all the other core deliverables that I alluded to as well. Chair, I think I'll just touch very quickly, not go through every bullet point, but I think it's important that we clearly, and this is an extract from both the proposal that was submitted, the technical proposal, as well as some of the financial process. So this is not an exhaustive list, but I thought I'd pull out the relevant ones for the purpose of this meeting. So the skills audit that assess technical, functional, leadership skills that exist within funds environment. The RAF required that the assessment be conducted online, aligned to their ICT kind of infrastructure. So basically, it's a survey, it's a questionnaire. We refer to something called 180 degrees. And just to take away the jargon around consulting, it's where we assess the individual patient. Sorry, Chair. Chair, can I continue?
Carry on, Dr. Cavend. I think maybe somebody may have accidentally been unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. Chair, as I said, on the skills assessment, the 180 degrees which we referred to, and it's probably useful to note that we normally would assess the incumbent's view on their potential skills in doing their job in terms of what the job entails from a job profile perspective. We also get input in terms of the other 90 degrees, get input from the direct line manager in terms of their performance against those certain key skills that are required to fulfill their responsibilities. We also had to ensure that, from a structure developed will effectively operate within RAF legislative framework, and we were clear in terms of what their mandate was, what is the nature of the business, what is the geographical spread, and the key thing, Chair, was to make sure that the citizens had access to services of what Road Accident Fund provided. I think that was an important point. We had to perform a bit of a work study analysis to ensure these efficiencies are achieved and what we refer to as workload. So basically we look at a particular function and we look at the volumes they push out from whether it's claims and how much of claims are coming through and what is the work that needs to be done in terms of processing a claim from end to end. And then we'll be able to say what is the workload, how does that relate to the capacity, the number of full-time equivalents or people required to effectively and optimally do that job. This has included ways to ensure productivity as improved based on optimized business processes. Now, Chair, the business process is also an important one, and I can take a question maybe later, but our scope, and I should have put it here as an assumption, was we covered level 1 to 3, and I'll explain a bit later what is level 1 to 3 in terms of business process. But in essence, it is at a functional level, it is at a business process, and a very high level activity level. Level 4 and 5 goes into much more detail in terms of what needs to be done step by step in terms of a work function. And that was really the responsibility for Road Accident Fund to take forward and implement as well. And then, Chair, the last point on this slide is the cost. Now, obviously, with proposing options on organizational structures, there is a cost implication in terms of what my current structure costs me. And when I talk of structure, I mean in terms of my payroll cost. What does it cost me now, vis-a-vis what it will cost me aligned to the new operating model, the new structure as well. So we had to bring our financial specialists in. We also had our actuaries working in terms of the data and so forth to bring that into the fore in terms of doing some of that modeling as well. Chair, this is quite a busy slide. I do apologize up front, but basically I think the point I want to make here is that the steps that we followed was very much in terms of PwC having a large consulting practice. We obviously have very detailed methodologies and kind of approaches we used to ensure quality at the end of the day. And we obviously used, as you can see, we used part of the documents in terms of the strategic plans as well to achieve operational excellence. What was part and what we refer to as triangulation, Chair, in order to ensure that we approach this in a diligent fashion. So one, there's a series of documents that are requested, and what does the documents do? It helps us understand where the pain points are. And Chair, I'm glad you picked up on one of the big pain points in terms of delays in processing of claims, high costs that we incurred in litigations that were quite stringent in the organization at the point in time. The poor customer service, which came up as another aspect which we had to ascertain from doing physical visits to some of the actual centers to understand the voice of the customer so that we could understand what is the practicalities around that. we also had to look at what is leading practice, Chair. Leading practice in terms of where there's similar organizations globally, and it's quite interesting that RAF is in a very unique position because they almost fall into an insurance and medical kind of domain. There's two domains that they play in. So we had to do a lot of kind of comparative analysis and bring where we see nuggets of excellence that happen as well. So that we did. And there was a series of interviews with both executives as well as with, people on the ground doing the work that we followed.
Sorry, Dr. Kavenda, may I interrupt you? There is a member that has got a hand. Honorable Skosana?
Okay, sure.
No, it's fine, Chair. It's fine, Chair.
Is it fine? Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay, please carry on, Dr. Kavenda.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Chair, so as I said, I'm not going to get technical and stuff here, but the slide just shows the diligence around how we approach some of these to bring real objectivity into the exercise. So key scope limitations, and once again, I'm not going to go into detail, but we had a list of kind of key scope limitations. They either were things that we were not going to do, or that was the responsibility of RAF. I won't go through every one here, Chair, but just to maybe touch on two, probably relevant ones for the purpose as well. The recommendation of systems and technology to suit the to-be processes was not provided by PwC. The whole development of a migration policy, the migration means putting people into positions as deemed necessary with the new model, was not performed by PwC. It wasn't part of our scope or part of what we were expected to do from a when I speak of scope, I mean what we contractually obligated to do and what we're not. The development of a competency framework, and you're looking at the fourth bullet from the bottom, that is a framework which is kind of a blueprint that RAF had already had. They already had in their possession, but in order to do the skills assessment, we had to interrogate that a bit. So we didn't develop it from scratch. We took the cue and see if it's future fit for purpose as well. In terms of psychometric assessments and so forth, I believe RAF was doing some of that, but I don't have details. But we certainly did not do any of that psychometric assessments or verification of qualifications and so forth. So let me just jump to the next slide. And once again, Chair, and I know it's a little bit of busy, I just decided to encapsulate everything in one place in case the honourable members also want to look at it in terms of any of the key activities. But in essence, I spoke of the phases on the left-hand side. So we had a series of phases in a very sequential, following our best practice methodology, and that kind of entailed a series of activities, project activities. You'll see it in the middle. I won't touch on that. But what I will touch on is the deliverables on the right-hand side, which I think is critical for this purpose. The first one is through phase one. There has to be a formal service level agreement. There has to be a project charter detailing exactly what we'll do, how we're going to do it, what will be the end results in terms of what will the client get at each part, at each milestone as well. We also had to agree on a billing schedule, and the billing schedule is really to say what is our financial arrangement in terms of during the duration of this project, at which milestones we are permissible to bill. And then, following strict rules from the PFMA, we linked it to deliverables and outputs rather than time and material, meaning we wouldn't bill the client at the end of the month because we spent X amount of time on the project, but rather a concrete deliverable or output. And the part on the phase one was the project plan with phases, milestones, timeframes, and so forth. Number two is we refer to it as this report. It's a very detailed report that really paints the picture around, and I spoke a little bit about it already, Chair. What is the as-is situation in RAF? And I think it's all contained in the report, which is quite a lengthy report. But there was a couple of things that jumped up. Obviously, the inefficiencies in terms of time delays in processing claims. I know that the RAF had an ambition to bring that to 120 days, clearly articulated in their strategy, but they were some of the claims were going up to 3 years or even more, which was scary in itself at that point in time. The customer dissatisfaction with services, I think that was one. The high costs that RAF was incurring from a legal perspective, so there were high costs coming through. On a continuous basis, and there wasn't any control mechanism there. I think linked to that was the number of litigations that was floating around on a continuous basis. The other point is you'll see it once again articulated in the documentation. RAF at that point had a number of security officers, security guards, and so forth, which was an in-sourced function at the point in time. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the outcomes, but certainly we saw that against leading practice as well, and obviously contained some of that in our recommendations in terms of how to move forward. And when I talk of the operating model, Chair, and I go back to what I just said, because I think it's important for the honourable members to understand this. In terms of a value chain, it's core what your business is expected to do. There's also decisions that need to be made in terms of what needs to remain as part of the core value chain. That means within the organization, and what can be outsourced to drive efficiency and speed up, in terms of delivering a service to the client out there. So once again, I won't touch on the activities, but phase 3 just culminated into a co-design proposed to be conceptual model. It's the model that will start to give meaning to what are the options on the organogram or the choices that RAF had to make. Now with this, we normally would share just to give pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages in terms of each option. And obviously we put it in front of the client and guide them in terms of leading practice and what will work best in your business. The choice is theirs in terms of choosing based on the options we have provided. There were also some leadership profiles we had to do, and then the business processes had to be completed here, as well as the capacity planning. And the microstructures, Chair, I spoke first of macro structure, which is the leadership structure, your executive levels and group heads. The microstructure is going into each department and saying, okay, under finance, whether it's treasury, whether it's debt management, loan management, whatever it may be that sits under a particular, that's the microstructure we refer to. So Chair, I'm almost at the end on this one. The phase 3 was really the work study, the capacity planning report, which took into consideration that RAF was going to implement some claims management system that was openly shared with us. So you've got to plan for the future and also plan for what RAF is planning to do in terms of driving streamlining stuff. The structure was based on approved RAF attorneys at the time, and the litigation management model being ineffective and quite costly at that point in time. Overall, we consolidated and did an estimated costing for the new structure option that was chosen by RAF, and we handed that over to them as well. The last phase was really around more the skills assessment. So as I said, we didn't do the skills, the competency framework. What we did using our analytics kind of teams as well to do the skills assessment, deploy the tool, collate the report, collate the data, collate the reports, and obviously finish off with the job profiles as well. The last part, Chair, is around number 5, which is really around the RAF transition plan. And this is, if you want to call it a framework to implement what has now been signed off, approved by the various governance structures. And then finally, Chair, the closeout report in order to close up the project, which was in December 2021. I'm not going to talk on this, Chair. This is just basically giving you a snapshot of the transition framework that was handed. Obviously, this is just a snapshot, but it's got much more details in it as well. Chair, if I can just, should I pause here, Chair, with your permission? Should I pause before I think I've got 2 more slides, maybe 1 or 2 more slides most.
Yeah, please complete the slides if there's
thank you, Chair.
1 or 2, and then we can have a conversation.
Lovely. Thank you for your guidance, Chair. Value for money, Chair, what I've done is kind of unpacked it a little bit. You'll see it's the transaction type in terms of the invoice. I've also put the invoice narration, because that narration is important because it links up to what I spoke about earlier on, the payment schedule. Now, what is the actual content of this invoice, not in terms of the numbers, but in terms of what the company is that, in terms of things that have been signed off, approved as per the project charter. That's the invoice narration, and the deliverables, the actual deliverables or outputs it's associated with. I've also put the general ledger date in there, so we tally back to our financial system, the transaction date and when it took place, and then the actual amount. So what you see in front of you was it can be mirrored against the payment schedule, which is part of the contract, and with the final amount at the bottom there. Just to make one point on this slide, Chair, if you look at the bottom, the honourable members can just pay attention at the bottom, the last block, total amount invoiced including the variation. So you see that variation was not a big amount. It was 434,783, but if you added VAT, it came to 500, which was in line with the variation letter we signed at a point in time with RAF as well. Chair, that brings me to my end of our presentation. I do apologize, but it took a little bit longer than I planned to, but I just wanted to bed the understanding of where we started, what we've done, where we've come out. So, Chair, with your permission, I will pause now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Govender. I really appreciate this presentation. If I may ask a couple of questions, and then I'll hand over to the members. You said that the RAF had a strategy. Was by the time this piece of work was commissioned, had you been, by you, I mean the PwC, been involved in the development of that strategy at all?
No, Chair, not at all.
Not involved at all?
Not at all, at all.
Okay, so how much of that strategy was made available to you, the strategy document?
It's in terms of doing an operating model OD structure, it's implicit that we have a copy of the strategy, which we obtained and we used as a basis, Chair.
All right. I just want to get some insights from you then, and you will soon see how it relates to some of the things that we are concerned about in terms of the Road Accident Fund's own efficiency or lack thereof, or deteriorating efficiency since. Did the Road Accident Fund indicate to you that it would no longer need the function of processing claims directly? Was that seen as something that was additional to requirements or no longer needed in the organization?
No, not at all, Chair. I mean, the fact that your job is to process claims as part of your mandate, no indication around that and no suggestions from our side around you should not be processing claims, because that is what you service the community with, yeah.
No, so it's a slightly different area. So let me put it to you this way. If they were in the insurance industry, so there was a claims origination department within the Road Accident Fund, they essentially would report to a business development person if it was a commercial entity, right? And they would go out, they were stationed out in hospitals, in outlying areas, assisting people to fill in their forms, give them with undertaking letters to get medical care, etc., etc. So in the organization, I would say in terms of headcount, it was a fairly significant number of people within, obviously, the parameters of the RAF's own total headcount.
Sure.
And the reason I'm asking you this question is because we have noted that the structure that was, the new structure that was envisaged was 400 and some odd people fewer than the initial structure. And one of the areas that then got culled first was the area of claims origination. I just want to know, were you part of conversations around that area? Because I would imagine that if such decisions are taken and so quickly, it's going to be in the strategy.
So just to comment, the operating model and the structure we developed for them was almost a quantum leap into what the future will look like. However, so that's important to note. So it can't happen tomorrow or next year. It's probably in the next 5 years. What are the dependencies of that to happen, Chair? There's a couple of things. If you don't have an effective system, or if you don't have your new processes being implemented, and you don't know where your skill set, you cannot just leapfrog into the quantum. I think that's an important point. I think the second point is in terms of the structure. As I said, you can't switch off the lights and switch it on again. It has to be a transition over a period to make sure that you're still delivering the service. And we know in the South African context, and we picked this up from a geographic location, is some places are very rural, they're not using technology, so you still need to have people on the ground to deliver that service. And that point was made very clear that Don't switch on your lights and switch it off again. It doesn't work like that. It has to happen in a transition period to ensure you don't drop on service delivery or you don't create more inefficiencies in terms of backlog. Backlog was an issue at that point in time. We advised the client, if anything, you need to put more resources, more team members to get rid of your backlog before you do quantum leap. And I think that's an important point.
Sure. No, thank you very much. But I do want to get a direct answer to the question of whether the claims origination area was part of your discussion. We'll get to the transition because it actually is important relative to the financial inefficiencies that have been presented to us. But I just want to know whether it was part of your scope and your discussions to look at the claims origination area and whether management felt or communicated to you that it was no longer needed and so on.
The straightforward answer, no. Claims origination is part of an important part of the value chain. At no point we were told that it's not required or won't be required in the future.
Okay. Tell me, when you talk about inefficiencies, what type of inefficiencies would we be talking about here? Would you just be talking about, let me tell you where I'm going. There has to be a sweet spot in terms of number versus volume of cases that you have, right? So we would need X number of claims administrators, we'd need X number of this size call center, etc., etc. So just give me a sense of the inefficiencies from your perspective, the types of inefficiencies that you noted during your evaluation.
Yeah, so maybe a couple of things, which is it's in our as-is report in terms of what came out from the as-is assessment. I think number one, Chair, as you know, in terms of using insights specifically from accident rates, the size of a region in terms of you can't compare, for example, a KwaZulu with Northern Cape as Kimberley as an example, just as a typical example.
Yeah.
So you got to take that context with the macro environment and in terms of the data that exists. So we did a lot of work in that situation, and the balancing act was to make sure that Road Accident Fund has presence in areas to deliver the service, irrespective of where it was. But the volume of the service or the extent of the service need to be, because at the current state, they just have big offices, number of people spread across the country without taking that into consideration from a data insight perspective. So in certain places, we advise to bulk up because you've got claims that are sitting for long periods of time. You need to bulk up and make sure you get those claims out, and you may need more manpower. In other areas, we had very similar staff complements, but we looked at the volumes. Volumes over the last 3 to 5 years was minimal. So they need to look at where they upskill, reposition people in their business to drive an effective, efficient service for the community. So I think that's an important point, Chair, and I hope I've answered your question.
All right. Okay. Maybe one of the members will get to it later. Did you? One of the things that we noticed was that there was now the chief investment officer's a chief investment office. Let me put it like that, or chief investment officer, and that came with an entire suite of services that you get, which is a back office, middle office, front office, investor relations, and so on. Were you part of that conversation that established that function?
No, we did the organigram, the organizational structure, and I can't answer if they've built something contrary or something that was further lifted up or bulked up. I can't answer that question. But we were not part of building that extensive kind of structures as you just alluded to.
Were you involved in any conversation about the chief investment office at all?
Yes, I mean at the beginning, because it's part of your macro structure. Chief investment officer was part of what we did in terms of looking at the macro structure and certain key positions as executives. Correct.
Sure. What did the RAF tell you about that? I mean, did they explain the rationale why they needed one, given the type of entity the Road Accident Fund is? It's a public entity. and chief investment officers perform a certain function versus a treasurer in the organization. So let me declare upfront, I work for one of the major banks. It didn't have a chief investment officer, despite having a balance sheet of over R1 trillion. The investment operations are performed by the treasurer on behalf of the bank. The road accident fund had the chief investment officer and the treasurer at the same time. So I want to be transparent with you around why I'm asking.
Sure.
Because that would appear to be an anomaly. A coronation or the PIC and so on, because they are fund managers, would have a chief investment officer to manage clients' money and a treasurer to manage their own money.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Correct. We now have the road accident fund. And part of the reason we've ended up with an inquiry is that we noticed this anomaly, where it appears to have thought itself to be a PIC, Public Investment Corporation, for instance. Right. So I just want to understand whether you were, as PIC, part of those conversations, because those appear to be anomalies in an organizational structure of a road accident fund.
No, thank you for that, Chair. And we were fully aware that PIC, we can understand they play a different role in terms of from an investment perspective for government across. So we fully understand that. At no point we said build a fully formalized unit as a chief investment unit in your business, given the nature of the business, what they do, and how they disperse money.
Okay, but did they explain to you why they needed a chief investment officer?
Yeah, I think they explained, and you're taking me 4 years back, but let me try to recall, Chair. But I think at that point in time, there was, remember they kind of collecting money from companies in terms of contributing and so forth, but also, more important, the accidents as well. People pay through third party, they get money from the fuel levies and stuff like that. So there was a thinking at that point in time from the client side is that we do have money, how can we ensure, besides disbursing, we also do a bit of investment? And I guess that if I recall from my memory, is that how do we invest some of the money?
So let me ask, have you done work with the insurance industry before?
Partly, Chair, yes, partly.
Partly. And as an the insurance industry would, it takes premiums from the members of the various schemes within, sure. Right? And it really has to have an excellent investment team in different types of investment instruments so that they can then meet their obligations. Sure. That's what an insurance company would do. Did it appear to be that's what they were trying to get at? Because the legislation envisages the road accident fund receiving on a monthly basis anywhere between 3.8 and 4.5 billion from the fuel levy on the 25th of every month, and that the efficiency in the system is that it passes it on as efficiently as possible while being able to finance its own operations on an ongoing basis. So your cash flow management, which is the treasurer's job, is the most important function in the organization, given monthly revenues of about 4 billion. That would kind of make sense, right?
Absolutely.
And so you do understand that then when you want a chief investment officer, you're thinking that you're going to get a cash pile somewhere that you can invest for longer than 30 days. Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would you need one?
Yeah.
So you didn't have that conversation at all about, in light of your mandate, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, I think maybe just to say, Chair, that's the difference between the RAF and a normal insurance fund organization. In this case, RAF, governed by PFMA, needs to disperse. The reason for collecting is to disperse the money where it's needed from the accident basis, not to invest and make money. And that's why we didn't go into that conversation about investment, because we didn't see it necessary, especially if you've got PIC there as well.
Okay, but they communicated to you that they need somebody to kind of manage investments. So here's my thing. If I'm in your role and somebody says, I want a chief investment officer, but I also want to have a treasurer, I'm going to ask them, I'm going to have this conversation with them. Make me understand, because I need to give you the best advice I can give you. Why do you want both of these functions in the organization? In light of your mandate, but your input is you never got there in your own conversation.
No, and Chair, I'd like to go back to as I said, it was 4 or 5 years ago. We talked, actually 5, 6 years ago. So I just want to get to grip specifically on that 2 points on the chief investment.
No, that's fine. If you can find notes, correspondence, or a presentation, please just share it with us. You don't need to find it now. You can do it at a later stage. I just want to understand in sum your insights around the area of claims processing itself, because I've spoken about claims origination, right? So the information that we now have from more than one witness and senior witnesses at that is that the claims origination was shut down. The effect of claims origination, as you would know, is that you don't get the clients that you have to pay out in the end, right? You get fewer of them. So that's the first thing. The second area where you would have an inefficiency that has got a beneficial impact if your intention is to hoard cash is in the claims area. If your interest is processing claims out as quickly as possible, that's one thing. You look at efficiencies in one way, but if you believe that it's paying out too quickly or whatever the case might be, it depends what you want to do with the money. What I'm trying to understand is just your observations of the claims area as a whole, the claims operation. Was it operating efficiently? And if not, at a high level, what sort of interventions did you advise if you were asked for that advice?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question, Chair. I think from an origination perspective, at no point did we as PwC say you need to shut down or reduce your kind of control over origination. That's a given. Why? Because it links to the mandate in terms of a road accident fund about delivering service to the people where they are. And you can't do origination if you're sitting at a head office and trying to do that. So that's the first point. Where there were inefficiencies, Chair, was in the processing of claims. And that was quite evident in terms of the time. So let's just say it comes to origination, it gets validated and so forth. All the records from an actuarial perspective is done in terms of, even from a health, in terms of the extent of the injuries, whatever. But then it comes to processing it. And that's where there was a big bottleneck for various reasons. There was, from a skill set perspective, from a process perspective, and I guess from where we saw it and what came out from the ASI's assessment was perhaps the accountability to make sure people did what they did from a processing perspective. So one of the things that we did do is to say, create process centers that can fast track and combine certain process centers that can fast track the processing. I'm leaving origination for a little while now.
I'm talking sure.
Processing is where the big bottleneck was, because it was costing the road accident fund reputational risk in terms of not delivering the service to the customers. It was also costing them, inefficiencies in terms of being able to, and the turnaround time, Chair, was, as I said, the ambition was to get it down to 120 days. And if I show you part of the reports, it was shocking. The average was about 3 years to process one claim. So that was an inefficiency.
We've since gone past that. We're chasing a decade. We're chasing a decade now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was scary. I mean, some people had injuries now, and road accident fund was probably contacting him at a point in time when the person was already deceased, because almost 10 years, a decade had gone by. So, and the reason I'm making that point is the inefficiencies that we've targeted and worked on was around the processing and making sure that you become seamless.
All right, just last two questions from me for now, and then I'll hand over to the members. Did you have any discussions around efficiencies in the legal and litigation division of the road accident fund, or activities? Let me put it like that.
Not anything around efficiencies, because they obviously needed the legal litigation team given the backlogs they had and what they were faced with. So we said, if anything, as I said, with in terms of like processing of claims, in terms of litigations, in terms of legal, you need to get your backlogs out, and in order to do that, you may have to beef up in terms of the number of people, the number of legal experts you had in your team going forward.
All right. So you were not part of a discussion about which option would work. So the decision that the Road Accident Fund took at some point was that it instead of using external lawyers to litigate on its behalf, in other words, to defend its claims, it would use the state attorney's office. And I'll ask you for your professional advice later on in respect of this.
Sure.
It would use the state attorney's office. Now, the Road Accident Fund told us a couple of days ago that they need between 400 and 600 warm bodies to support litigation, right? That's a number that was sitting outside the organization within the law firms. Now, we have no quibble with the Road Accident Fund taking a decision to use one or other way of defending its matters at all. What we're concerned with is the efficiency thereof. Now, what we have been told is that it was expensive to use external lawyers to litigate the Road Accident Fund's matters. But I just want to get a sense if you were involved in any assessments of the legal department, whether it has enough people, is it adequately resourced, are there any leakages financially from that area, and so on.
Thank you, Chair. I think as PwC at no point we said get rid of any panel attorneys or legal, because at the moment that's how the model operated.
No, I'm asking a different question. Did you notice any inefficiencies? I mean, what they do as a result is their decision. I'm just asking, did you observe any inefficiencies in that area?
I guess the inefficiencies led to the understanding from the assessment that it was costing RAF an exorbitant amount of money in terms of legal fees. That's the observation we made. Not the observation we made, that was the inferences coming from the assessment we did.
Right. So if you're saying exorbitant, was that benchmarked against anything?
Yes. I don't have the numbers. Yes, it was. I don't have the numbers with me, Chair, but it showed how there was an escalation of the legal fees that were being incurred on a year-by-year basis, which we've had the numbers, and yet there was still concern about the efficiencies of delivering and getting claims processed and out of the system and paid out as well.
Did you have opportunity to look at legal fees per claim? Efficiency at that level. So in other words, how much it costs the Road Accident Fund to finalize in legal fees to finalize a claim.
Yeah, now we did.
Did you look at that?
Yes, we looked at all the elements that involved in it, from a legal process being initiated to the end. What was it costing? I don't have the numbers with me, Chair, but certainly can share that with you as well.
It has more than tripled since. So yes. So that's where we sit right now. So that's part of the reason we now have. I mean, the Road Accident Fund used to spend at some point 10 billion to finalize 253,000 claims. Right? It's now using 7-odd billion for 63,000. So on a per capita basis, you see how that number has gone the wrong way, right? And if you were to apply the same rate on 253,000, you're looking at legal claims north of 20-something odd billion. Right. So that's why you and I are sitting here today. And we have to talk about this. Okay. Let me leave it here and for now, and then I will, I'll give the members opportunity to ask questions. And then at the end, if there are any questions outstanding, we will just come back to some to some issues. Honorable Atkinson, your hand was out of the blocks quickly. So may I propose that we aim to take a quick break at 11:30 to give Dr. Govender, time to go to the bathroom, and that I will give you the next 10 minutes, Honorable Atkinson, given our time limitations today. We're not coming back in the evening. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks. Dr. Govender, thanks very much for attending the meeting today and for the insight that you're giving us. What I wanted to ask you was, has PwC been engaged to do any other work for the Road Accident Fund? So apart from what you were doing, say over the last 3 or 4 years, or say since 2020, was this the only contract that was PwC was involved in with the Road Accident Fund?
Maybe just to say, I work in the consulting part of the business for PwC.
Right.
While I was involved in this consulting project, there wasn't any project. I'm unaware of any, perhaps from an assurance, that's the accounting practice or the tax. But while I was busy, no, I was the only one busy during that period from a consulting project of this nature. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Who were you engaging with at the Road Accident Fund with regards to your recommended changes? Were you dealing directly with the CEO, or who in the organization was your kind of main point person?
No, thank you, Honourable Member. I think our project sponsor, as well as the person who was the signatory on the contract, was the CEO at the point in time. The CEO obviously roped in his EXCO team, his executives into that. That was part of the journey going forward. And even to the board, that was the CEO's responsibility to kind of present to the board at various stages. And we were invited for 1 or 2 of those meetings from a technical perspective, but led by the CEO.
And how receptive was he to any changes that you might have recommended?
Sorry, Honourable Member, can you just repeat that question, please?
No, I said how receptive was the CEO to any changes that you recommended? And particularly, the reason for asking this question is that you did make a comment early on where you said the really important thing is that you can't jump from one thing to another unless you have a plan to get there. So you can't switch off the lights and then suddenly turn them on again a little bit later. So there had to be a plan from getting from A to B. And in many respects, there do seem to be many instances in which the lights were turned off without a plan to get to point B, if you know what I mean. So I was just wondering if that had been discussed with the CEO and whether you found your recommendations were getting traction, basically, with them.
Yeah. No, I think a good question, and I guess there's 2 parts to your question. Let's talk about the part where we were involved, and I'll leave the implementation aside for a second. Let's talk about the part in terms of when we were engaging with the CEO. We had the methodology, and we stuck to our guns in terms of methodology. Because compromising, if taking shortcuts or jumping the gun will compromise the quality, and I'm the engagement partner, it's on my neck to manage the quality of what I bring out. And obviously this is a public entity, so I know, and even if it wasn't a public entity, we need to stand true to the sequential steps. So we went through the sequential steps. Perhaps it was a bit painful for RAF, as they sometimes got frustrated with us, but we had to stick to our guns to follow that sequence. So you can, for example, let me give you a perfect example. You cannot get to your organizational structure and talk about your macro level before we get official sign-off in terms of the options relating to the operating model. We stuck to our guns, and maybe that's why there was delays, because we continued having engagements, continued showing them, and we brought in a lot of subject matter experts, like people from insurance, people from medical, to advise what is the rationale there. So to answer your question, Honourable Member, we stuck to our guns on the part that we had control over. The part we didn't have control over is the implementation. The transition plan, the implementation plan was given over. So because we stepped off, I'm not sure, I'm really not sure, I haven't followed what has been done, whether they jumped the gun and decided to do step 5 before step 1 in terms of the implementation. Because as you appreciate, even implementation, there's a sequential process that one needs to follow. For example, a simple one I give you, you need to make sure your job descriptions are being revised before you do a job grading and evaluation of what we should pay the person the job. You can't do the grading before you do. So to answer your question, I'm unsure about whether that sequential process was followed, but while we were on the project, while we had control over the deliverables, we ensured, and then the CEO was subscribed to that as well.
Just another question: was your group ever asked to conduct investigations into suspended staff members at all? Hello, sorry, can you hear me there?
I missed. No, I just said the first part. Something about.
No, you drifted off. We couldn't hear you.
No, sorry. Was a call came in just as I was asking the question. No, were you asked to conduct any investigations of suspended staff members of the RAF?
Not at all. That's not. Not at all. I'm not in the forensic space, and it's not part of our scope. Not at all. Even verification of qualifications. Nothing of that sort.
Okay. So, do you know whether any of your restructuring advice actually was implemented? And the reason why I asked this was that we had Mr. Charakupa, who was an actuary previously at RAF, gave evidence last week, and he spoke about how RAF is really focused on reducing staff, which does seem to fly in the face of what your recommendations were. So, were you aware if any of your recommendations were implemented as such?
I'm unaware of what they implemented and what they didn't implement, but one of the things I probably want to be quite clear, there's no part of our implementation that suggested retrenchments or getting rid of staff, especially where they were, and I spoke of the putting the lights off and on. In your operating model, if you created efficiencies, if you had your business process done, that's a quantum leap. Yes, you could have excess people in your business, but nowhere did we indicate that you need to retrench people in terms of people, because I think for me, having worked in the OD space for a long time, retrenchment is almost a last resort. You first repurpose, reskill people, reposition them in parts of the business that require more people, as an example.
And then it's sort of a final question. You spoke about a costly litigation model, and considering, as the chair has just mentioned, the fact that the cost of litigation actually has gone up by about 70% over the last 3 or 4 years, the average value of claims dealt with. Do you not think it would have been a more efficient process to employ or contract experienced legally trained people to address the immense backlog of claims on trial? So in other words, to have actually built up more of an in-house capacity to be able to deal with these people. And I know that you were talking about increasing staff, but would your suggestions have been to have looked at more legally trained staff to deal with the backlog?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and before I got here, I looked at where we'd advised them, you need to beef up on your staff numbers, and that was one area you need to beef up to get efficiencies, speed up the process, because the lengthiness in the process, legal proceedings, and not being concluded quickly, which what led to the exorbitant amount. So certainly we had given some indication around, and I don't have the details here, but given indication about beefing out your substance in terms of, from a legality perspective, in legal people in RAF itself.
And sorry, just one final point. I think you probably know that one of the sort of headline conflicts that it's been going on with the Road Accident Fund has been the accounting practices that they've been following. So it should have been audited, according to the Auditor General, as a social insurance fund. But for the last 3 or 4 years, it was audited as a social benefit fund, which dramatically reduced liabilities, but gave an inaccurate view of how the entity was actually being managed and what the actual true liabilities were. Were you at any point did that ever come up in conversation with you when you were doing your reports about the accounting standards to be followed, and about the efficacy, I suppose, of a social benefit fund as opposed to a social insurance fund?
No, not at all. We didn't dabble into that space because I guess it's quite specialized from an accounting perspective as well as from an auditing perspective. So we didn't go into that space as part of our project.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Honourable Atkinson, and thank you, Dr. Govender. So just to remind the members, so in my note, I did say that the part of PwC's business that dealt with the accounting issues will be with us next week. Dr. Govender is from the consulting business. I hope I'm characterizing it correctly. And therefore you would not have been involved. So we will have Honorable Atkinson, a different witness, still from PwC, to canvass those matters with us next week.
Correct, Chair. Absolutely.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Honorable Beasley, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings, Dr. Govender. I apologize if I might be repeating a few questions, but I just had to be on plenary, so if I do apologize. But I don't know where you're based, Dr. Govender. Is you in Durban?
No, I'm based in Gauteng, Johannesburg. So I'm in the Midrand office, PwC.
Okay, I just thought maybe I saw the sea outside. So just a couple of questions. I mean, since you did this assignment, let's say, the efficiencies in RAF have got particularly worse. There's been a sharp reduction in the claims registered and a sharp reduction in the amount of claims actually paid. And what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously you did a report that would be making it more efficient, but subsequent to your time, it has become vastly, and when I say vastly, I'm not saying a little bit, it's become vastly inefficient. And do you think it's a case that either your recommendations were wrong or secondly, they weren't implemented?
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's sad that we sit here today and, to see what we assisted with for efficiency and optimization, and then things have gone differently or gone kind of pear-shaped, if I may use that word. Our recommendations, I will still stand by the recommendations even up to today, because it's solid and it shows a clear indication of how efficiencies would increase and improve. And if I use a simple example, Honourable Member, your business processes were outdated. You needed to we did the business process kind of remapping, re-engineering. The art or the secret lies in the implementation. Because doing it is one thing and having it in the year. If you don't implement it, you're not going to get efficiencies. But it's based on leading practice from process efficiencies, so we know that. That's the one part. Also, your organizational structure in terms of creating efficiencies and saving costs was always kept at the back of our mind in developing something for the future. How that was implemented, I'm not too sure. As I said, I wasn't part of the implementation. And also the important point is the design was for a quantum leap. The transition plan shows what you need to do is to get rid of the backlog, create efficiencies from a skills perspective, close the gap where people didn't have the skills, make sure you're taking service to the ground in terms of what the model entails through a transition period. And what I'm seeing is that perhaps there wasn't diligence on following the implementation plan to get the efficiencies which would have happened if one had followed it diligently. So, and unfortunately, we're not in control of the implementation, as I said.
Now, I appreciate that. So I was just trying to get a sense. The sense that I'm getting from you is that your 8 million rand fee, which costs South Africans, hasn't been implemented, and that's not your responsibility, but that's your take on it.
Absolutely.
And then obviously you did a detailed transition plan. Is that correct? And I don't know if that's been shared with the committee. I don't know how big a document it is, but it'll be interesting to actually have a look at the transition plan. And then I may have missed these questions because I did hear the chair asking them, and I apologize because I had to take a quick thing on the plenary. But in any way, did you or advise as to going away from direct claims at all, towards a different system of less direct claims, less walk-in claims? Was that part of your the way to speed up processes? Would have that been one of the recommendations?
Let me just start with the first part of what you just alluded to in terms of the transition plan. It's quite a detailed plan. I just don't want to forget it, Honourable Member. So I made a note of it. I will send you that. The transition plan also had key dependencies and key success factors in order for that to materialize. And you'll see it's quite bolstered up in terms of us giving it solid information frameworks, what you need to do in a sequential fashion to achieve success and optimization. So maybe that's the first part. I think to your, if I understand your question, and please correct me if I didn't, is that you're saying, did we suggest or make a recommendation around the fact that instead of walk-ins, they should be more online? Is that the essence?
No, so essentially in the RAF, and you'll probably know better than me because you probably spent more time. I've been there for like 3 weeks in the Enquiry, but there's two ways a claim can be submitted. You can either do it myself as Alan Beasley, or I can get a lawyer to do it on my behalf. So there's been a big movement away from me doing it in my own personal capacity. That has actually plummeted to actually having a lawyer represent you. And I'm just wondering if that was part of your recommendations to say, maybe to improve efficiencies is let's reduce the Alan Beasley's walking in per se and more represented by a lawyer claim.
Yeah, I think the one thing is that what we did put as a recommendation, when you have an efficient system in place, there shouldn't be a middleman, a buffer, like an attorney. People can do it, walk-in process, whether it's using an app, whether it's walking in. So that, because with technology brings efficiencies and less reliance on humans to be able to do certain things, and that is optimization. So certainly I think, but it's almost a balancing act. If you don't have the system in place, and if you don't have presence from a claim origination in the various, then you're doing a disfavor to society and the citizens who don't have the privilege of staying in an urban area, as an example. So I think there's almost a balancing act, but it has to happen over a transition period. But nowhere did we recommend either or.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then over the period that the board came up with a new form, how claims were actually captured, would you guys have recommended that actual process at all? So they actually changed the way the form was captured, and the courts have ruled it that it's actually illegal. Did you guys have any recommendations on that at all?
Not at all. We didn't dabble into how they will process or how they were obtaining and processing claims. We just looked at the whole origination and the claim processes from an organizational structure perspective and from an operations perspective, not in terms of the mechanics they use to do it, which is the form you're alluding to.
Okay. No, and thank you, Chair. That's me. And thank you, Dr. Governor. Appreciate the engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thanks very much, Dr. Governor. Can I ask the members if there are any members with any more questions? I'm looking for hands. Then if not, then I'll ask a couple more. On a general level, Dr. Governor, maybe the members might be jogged with memory. Can you, and this is in terms of general practice, and in areas where you have supported organizations with sort of some change, when your mandate extends to an element of change management operationally, so that nothing falls between the cracks. And I will tell you why we are asking, having established from you that the RAF was responsible for its own implementation. You've explained the areas in which you are involved and in which you are not involved. So this is now a general conversation to provide context to the committee in terms of how these things are done, but I'll be transparent with you in terms of why we're asking. Sure. So the Road Accident Fund took a decision not to use its panel of attorneys and to rather use a state attorney. It's a state entity, so it can use the office of the state attorney because that's the law firm of the government. So on the face of it, there is nothing wrong with that. What concerned us earlier in the week were a couple of things. One, it's the legal fees per claim, legal cost per claim has gone up significantly. So that's a financial inefficiency that has to be arrested. That's the first thing. The second thing, it became clear the decision was taken some 5 years ago. The people at the committee were still telling us that the switch was still in its infancy. Which means, we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of the number of people that we have versus the caseload. So in some regions that are really busy, such as Gauteng, one attorney has more than 4,000 files to manage on their own, right? Okay, so to a lay person, what that says is if you want to do something like this where you're switching from one way of providing a service onto another, so in other words, you're gonna need a transition, there are files involved and that kind of thing. How do you generally propose your clients deal with those kind of transitions? What sort of factors need to be taken into account is so that your work itself does not suffer and the inefficiencies you often get asked to deal with don't get worse or or they persist. So that's why I'm asking, but we also don't work in operations, right? So we just want a sense of how you generally advise clients to look out for, what to do, etc.
No, Chair, thank you very much, and I think a very practical question. So based on my experience of what we would normally do to assist a client in this instance, the first is to get to understand your volumes, and you used a good example, Chair, in terms of one attorney to 4,000 files, which is it's too much, let's put it that way, because that will delay efficiencies in terms of one attorney going through so many files and how long it's going to take to get to the output on that process, legal process. So what we always advise a client, deal with the as-is situation, your burning platform. So in this case, and we kind of put this as a recommendation, you've got backlogs, and you chatted about it now, Chair. You need to get through your backlog before you start to dream about the big picture. How do you do that? There's a couple of ways, Chair. You either bring in contractors or bring in extra staff if required to get your backlog sorted out as a fundamental, a problem issue, a burning platform, number one. Number two is, you're going to incur cost if you're going to bring contracts or bring more people. So be clever. You've done your skills assessment, you know where your skill set sit, one. Number two, on the other side, you've done your volumes in looking at understanding the data where the big, you use Gauteng as an example. So you need to have the ability and have the courage to redeploy people in terms of where the biggest need is required. So it's about repositioning and redeploying people as the first take on it. And there's whole concept around relocation policies and so forth. So when staff get affected in a particular region, they're not affected with the entire organization in terms of the employment. They just need to move. And it happened to me personally, Jay, in my own career, I had to move. But it was for business purposes. At least I still had a job, and then I had to move to another region. But anyway, getting back to the point. So it's important for them to do that exercise. Because we talk of automation in terms of automation is not going to get rid of your backlogs. It takes time to be embedded. It takes time for people to be adopted. It takes time to create the efficiencies you're looking. Over a long time, yes. So that's my take on it, Chair, in terms of how we deal with the situations that you've alluded to.
All right. No. Thank you very much. So in other words, you might need to basically it comes down to capacity.
Yes.
In the areas where you've got the biggest problem. What you cannot have is to be undercapacitated where you've got your biggest problem. Okay. All right.
Chair, just to add one point. I use the word contractors deliberately. Because what you don't want to do is bring in more people on your payroll on a permanent basis, incur more, and then you have an issue later when the volumes drop and you don't require. That's an irresponsible thing. When you bring contractors, you contract them to do specific work, output driven, work is done, contract's done.
Right. So in the case then of trying to insource work, I mean, in this case it was attorneys. You would normally take account of issues like how many people do I need to recruit? How long does it take to recruit them? When would they be ready and familiarized with the file, etc.? And how long will it take to fill out all the roles? And then I can say, finally, I'm doing it myself. I don't need anyone else outside helping me. Would that be a sensible way of going about it?
What you just alluded to, Chair, is a diligent transition plan to get to the quantum leap. Absolutely spot on. Correct.
All right. No, thank you very much. Final question from me. One of the things we noticed on the RAF structure was, and I don't know to what extent this is practice, and I'll tell you why this question matters. So there used to be an HR director, for lack of a better word. So there need to be a chief HR officer. In the Road Accident Fund. I think they were called the chief people officer. In the new structure, they were subordinated to the chief corporate support services division. So then there was HR, there was communications and marketing, there was legal, I think, there was legal and so on. So there are roles that used to be on the executive committee that were no longer on the executive committee. I don't know if that was part of your process where that happened, in terms of what structure would be optimal for the Road Accident Fund.
I'm quite surprised that you say the chief HR officer is not in an executive role, because I can remember clearly that was an executive position, given the important role that they played and given the geographical proximity in which they operate. So you needed to have a chief HR officer that held everything together, and whether you have HR business partners sitting in the various offices, regions, reporting into that, it's important. I mean, so I don't know where that's coming from, taking it and dropping it to a level lower, because the intention was always to have one of the executives being a chief HR officer, like you have a chief financial officer, like you have in terms of whatever it be in other executive roles.
Okay. All right. Just for the removal of doubt, after this meeting, just check your notes, just to be certain, because that's one of the things when we looked at the organogram, we noticed that now there might be very good reason, I don't know, but when you have HR processes which proceed to severely disrupt the operations and efficiencies of the organization, you then run to that function to see, is there somebody there, at which level are they operating, etc., because you are seeing the bloodbath in the HR environment with a spike in CCMA and labor court cases and disruption to operations. So that's why we are asking. But I understand it was some time ago. Please just check your notes, and if you find anything that may be useful to us, that provides us with insight, that would be helpful, because we encountered a structure that does not have so the Road Accident Fund, in my view, needs four things. One, it needs people, really good people, in terms of skill, in terms of capacity, EQ, and so on, given its work. The second thing is that it needs a strong IT system, information technology environment, and information systems environment. It does not have a chief technical officer or chief information officer, which is odd, right? So that's it. And I'd like to know if that was part of your conversation as well. The third thing is that the Road Accident Fund is litigious, obviously. It's always in court. People want to prove their claims. So your legal capacity is really important, both in terms of the quality of the people that you have and the quantum thereof. Otherwise, you are going to have serious problems. And then the fourth one is claims administration. Once the things are here, they've got to move through the system. So for me, it needs those four things. So if I accept that, I look for people, because you need to have a strong executive. I look for systems. You look for a chief information officer, you don't find one. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that ever came up, the chief information officer or chief technical officer, a discussion. at the Road Accident Fund, given the nature of its work?
Yeah, I'll have to go check my records back, because some of the things that you're saying to me seems like things that were implemented against some of the grain of what we suggested, to be quite honest. And I think what I need to do is go look at it. But more importantly, on the Chief Technology Officer, and as I sit here, if you are going to go big bang into technology, whether it's a claim system, an IT system and stuff, you need somebody senior in there to be able to drive that. And I see you nodding your head. Absolutely. So why would we not put it? Because the idea was to get Road Accident Fund into the quantum leap to get more technologically attuned and deliver more effectively, efficiently over a period. And that required a journey. And the journey needs to be owned by somebody from IT. And it has to be a Chief Technology Officer. And as I said, I need to go back to my records. But that, for me, is what I'd like to share with you at this point in time.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Please go and consult your record. So let me ask one last time. If any of the members want to ask you anything, Honorable Beasley wants a second bite.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I think you've covered me on the legal side there, Chair. Yeah, just two questions. In terms of the auditing firms, is there ever a time when you actually say the risk of doing an assignment is not worth the financial benefit? And were there any thoughts around that in terms of the Road Accident Fund? And then secondly, did you ever get a sense that it was just a tick box exercise, that your recommendations weren't going to be implemented, that your transition plan wasn't going to be implemented? Did you ever get a sense at some time during the investigation that, sure, and I'm saying this respectfully, it's no accusation that this is just a tick box exercise, and because often these state entities, they do these tick box exercises to show that it's done, but the reality, the implementation actually doesn't happen. So I just wonder if in your engagements with the board, with anybody, that you had a sense that at any stage, even towards the end, that you had a sense that it was just going to go into file 13. Thank you, Chair.
To you, Chair.
Over to you.
Yeah, to you, Chair. I guess let me just get to the first question. In terms, we are a business that has 3 lines of service, which is the audit, the assurance practice, the tax practice, and the consulting. And as a firm, holistically, we have to make some choices. We need to see, in terms of what the ask is. So to answer your question, yes, on the first part, which is probably the easier one. The second part is, at no stage from embarking and mobilizing in this project to engaging with REMCO, engaging with EXCO, because Road Accident Fund was in a bad state. And I'm sad to what I hear that it's gone to a worse state. So it was in such a situation that it deserved real catalytic changes to make things happen. So we were strongly of the belief that, making these fundamental changes, which from what I'm hearing has not necessarily been implemented, was not about a tick box exercise. Because as a firm, as PwC, we also want to be proud and say we left a legacy that contributes towards the well-being of our country. And that's what is so important for us to get involved in this project. From a societal perspective, yes, there was financial gain, but we knew if we fix up this fundamental issue with a key client or key business operation in our country, it'll sort many other problems. Because you can understand, with this payout of claims, it doesn't impact the individual, it impacts the whole family that sits behind the individual, as examples. So that's more on the softer side. At no instance did we think that this will be a tick box exercise for a couple of reasons. There was a number of roadshows the CEO had to go into the regions to say there's change coming and it's going to be positive to drive efficiency. There's also commitments from the CEO, which I think was on carte blanche in other places, we're saying we're going to make this claim system have a quick turnaround time around 120 days, as an example. So where we've come from, what we're going to do in creating efficiencies. So that was always the intention, and I think it was a collective intention from both RAF and from our side. But as I said, it's sad that when you're not involved in implementation, the best intentions will only materialize if there's implementation thereof. So, Honourable Member, I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cavender. Honorable Beasley would have said so if he wasn't happy. He has no trouble speaking. Dr. Cavender, I don't see any more questions from you, but I'd like to thank you for taking time out this morning to speak to the committee, to just tell us about your involvement with the Road Accident Fund on these matters. We will also reflect on our conversation, and there might be instances where we just in writing ask you for several other things. If that happens at all, it may not become necessary. But sometimes, as we hear from other witnesses, they might once again mention you guys. We won't call you back unnecessarily. If we can deal with things in writing, we will ask you to do that, unless it becomes necessary for you to come back. But I'd really like to thank you and your colleagues for responding promptly to our request for you to be with the committee today. We really appreciate it. It's helpful to our work and what we all want at the end of the day. What you described as a frictionless process that involves technology and so on, where a person can file a claim and it actually becomes possible to finalize it within a reasonable amount of time, and they can access the benefits they need, is what the committee also wants. We obviously also want every rand to go as far as possible, which is why we are here discussing efficiencies and this kind of thing, so that all of us, when we need to deal with the road accident fund, hopefully never, but because nobody wants to get injured in an accident. So hopefully we never get to deal, but in the event that any of us do, it's something that lessens the trauma rather than adds to it. So thank you very much. We appreciate your presence today.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much from myself.
All right, we appreciate it. Honorable members, thank you very much. I appreciate your participation in the meeting as well. And those who are traveling, travel safely, and we'll see each other next week.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Recording stopped.